Daddy! Daddy, help me! The 5-year-old's scream pierced the darkness as 2 masked men dragged her through the sawmill door. Her pink unicorn pajamas tore against the concrete. Her small fists beat uselessly against arms thick as tree branches. 30 feet away, a 7-year-old homeless boy pressed himself against the cold brick wall. His hands were shaking. His heart was exploding. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But that scream, that desperate, terrified scream, sounded exactly like his sister's voice the night the fire took her. Marcus Cole's feet started moving before his brain caught up. He didn't know that little girl was Lily Stone. Didn't know her father was the Hells Angels president. Didn't know his choice in the next 60 seconds would bring the most dangerous men in Colorado to their knees and shake this entire town to its core. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Now enjoy. Marcus Cole pressed his small body against the cold brick wall and tried to remember the last time he'd felt warm. Not the fake warm that came from moving fast or curling into a tight ball. Real warm. The kind that came from a blanket pulled up to your chin, from a mother's arms wrapped around you, from a house that smelled like dinner cooking and safety. 18 months. That's how long it had been since the fire took everything. His stomach cramped hard, and Marcus pressed his fist against it, waiting for the pain to pass. He'd learned that trick early. Don't fight the hunger. Don't think about it. Just wait. It always passed eventually. The sun was setting over Copper Ridge, and Marcus knew what that meant. The temperature would drop fast. By midnight, his teeth would be chattering so hard he'd taste blood. By 3 in the morning, he'd give up on sleep entirely and just walk in circles behind the sawmill, trying to keep his blood moving. This was his life now, and nobody in this town cared enough to change it. "Hey, you get away from there!" Marcus's head snapped up. The coffee shop owner, Mr. Patterson, was standing in his doorway, pointing a finger like Marcus was a stray dog who'd wandered too close. "I told you yesterday, kid. You stand near my shop, you scare away customers. Move it." Marcus didn't argue. He'd learned that arguing made things worse. Adults didn't listen to homeless kids. They just called the police faster. He picked up his plastic bag, the one that held everything he owned, and started walking. "And don't come back," Patterson shouted after him. "Next time, I'm calling the cops." Marcus kept walking. He didn't look back. Looking back meant they could see your face. And if they saw your face, they remembered you. And if they remembered you, they made your life harder. Better to be invisible. Better to be nobody. He'd gotten good at it. 18 months of practice. 18 months of learning exactly how to move through a town that had decided he didn't exist. The grocery store was coming up on his right. Marcus automatically crossed to the other side of the street. The manager there, a heavy man named Wilson, had threatened to have him arrested for loitering last week. All Marcus had been doing was standing near the dumpster, waiting for closing time, when they threw out the day-old bread. He'd been so hungry that night, hungry enough to risk it. But Wilson had come out with a baseball bat, swinging it like Marcus was a rat in his kitchen. "You want food? Get a job," Wilson had screamed. "You want handouts? Go somewhere else. This ain't a charity." Marcus was 7 years old. He didn't know where you got a job when you were 7. He didn't know where the charities were. He just knew that the bread in that dumpster was going to rot and his stomach was empty, and nobody seemed to understand that those two facts could exist at the same time. A mother walked past him on the sidewalk, holding her daughter's hand. The little girl looked at Marcus with curiosity, the way kids always did. But the mother pulled her daughter closer, walked faster, put her body between her child and the homeless boy, like he was dangerous. "Don't stare, honey," the mother whispered, loud enough for Marcus to hear. "Just keep walking." The little girl looked back once. Marcus looked away. He used to wave at kids, used to smile, used to think maybe if he was friendly enough someone would talk to him, would ask his name, would wonder where his parents were. Nobody ever asked. After a while, he stopped waving, stopped smiling, stopped expecting anything from anyone. The sawmill was a 20-minute walk from the center of town. Marcus had found it 3 months ago after the restaurant owner on Main Street installed sprinklers specifically angled to spray the spot where Marcus used to sleep. He'd woken up soaking wet at 2 in the morning, shivering so hard he thought his bones might break. That's when he learned they didn't just ignore homeless kids. They actively worked to erase them. The sawmill was perfect, abandoned for years, far enough from town that nobody came looking. The building itself was too dangerous to sleep inside, all broken glass and rotting floors and rats that weren't afraid of humans. But the eastern wall still held warmth from the day's sun, and the overhang kept most of the rain off, and there was a gap in the fence just big enough for a small boy to squeeze through. It wasn't a home, but it was his. Marcus reached the fence as the last light faded from the sky. He squeezed through the gap, feeling the familiar scrape of metal against his ribs, and made his way to his spot against the wall. His blanket was still there, thin as paper found behind the laundromat 3 weeks ago, but it was something. His water bottle refilled at the gas station bathroom when the attendant wasn't watching. And at the very bottom of his plastic bag, wrapped in an old t-shirt, the photograph. Marcus didn't take it out. He didn't need to. He'd memorized every detail, every crease, every faded face. His mother, his little sister Ava, himself back when he still smiled, back when he still believed the world made sense. Before the fire, before everything. "Stop it," Marcus whispered to himself. His voice sounded strange in the silence. He didn't talk much anymore. Nobody to talk to. Stop thinking about it. But the cold made it harder to control his thoughts. The hunger made everything worse. And tonight, for some reason, the memories kept pushing through. Ava's laugh. The way she used to grab his hand and drag him to show him something, some bug or flower or cloud that looked like a bunny. The way she'd crawl into his bed during thunderstorms because she was scared and he made her feel safe. He'd made her feel safe. And then the fire came and he couldn't save her. Couldn't get to her room. Couldn't do anything but scream her name while the firefighters held him back. Marcus pressed his fists against his eyes until he saw stars. Until the memories broke apart. Until he could breathe again. "Stop it," he said again, harder this time. "She's gone. They're all gone. Crying won't bring them back." The foster home had been worse than the streets. That's what people didn't understand. They thought homeless meant worst-case scenario. They didn't know about the group home, about the older kids who stole food from the younger ones, about the house, parent who hit you if you cried, about the man who came at night with breath that smelled like whiskey and hands that touched places they shouldn't touch. Marcus had run, climbed out a window at 2 a.m. and just ran until his legs gave out. That was 18 months ago. He'd been 6 then, barely 6. Didn't know how to survive, didn't know where to go, didn't know anything except that whatever was out here couldn't be worse than what was in there. He'd been wrong about a lot of things since then, but he'd been right about that. A car drove past on the distant road, headlights cutting through the darkness for a moment before disappearing. Marcus watched it go and wondered where they were headed. A house, probably. A warm house with food and beds and people who noticed when you walked through the door. He'd been noticed once. Before the fire. His mom used to wait for him at the window when he came home from school, and her whole face would light up when she saw him, and she'd open the door and pull him into a hug, like he'd been gone for years instead of hours. Nobody waited for him anymore. Nobody's face lit up. Nobody opened doors. Marcus pulled the blanket around his shoulders and leaned against the cold brick. The chill was already seeping through his thin jacket, through his skin, into his bones. It would be a long night. He'd survive it. He always did. But surviving and living were two different things. And Marcus was starting to forget what living felt like. The sound came out of nowhere. An engine. Close. Too close. Cutting off abruptly in a way that made Marcus's whole body go rigid. He knew the sounds of this place, the distant traffic on the highway, the occasional animal in the woods, the wind rattling the old sawmill walls. This was none of those. This was something else. Something wrong. Marcus pressed himself flatter against the wall, making his body small the way he'd learned to do. His heart was pounding now loud in his ears, and every survival instinct he'd developed on these streets was firing at once. Car doors opened. Not slammed. Carefully closed. The kind of sound people make when they're trying to be quiet but can't afford to be slow. Footsteps, multiple sets, heavy, adult, moving with purpose. Marcus stopped breathing. Not consciously. His body just did it the same way a rabbit freezes when it senses a predator. Complete stillness. Complete silence. Invisible. The footsteps were getting closer, moving toward the sawmill entrance. Then he heard it. A child's cry. Muffled, like someone had a hand over her mouth, but unmistakable, high-pitched, terrified. The cry of a little girl who knew something very, very bad was happening to her. Marcus's hands started shaking. He gripped the edge of his blanket like it might anchor him to reality, like it might keep him from flying apart. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not at his place. Not in the one spot in this entire town that was supposed to be his. The footsteps moved inside the sawmill. The metal door screeched as someone forced it open, and that muffled crying got louder before it suddenly stopped, replaced by a rough voice that made Marcus's blood freeze. "Shut her up. Now!" "I'm trying. She won't stop squirming. Use the zip ties. Get her hands secured. We don't have much time." Marcus's brain was processing faster than it ever had before. Zip ties. Kidnappers. A little girl who wouldn't stop fighting even though she had no chance of winning. He had a choice. He could stay pressed against this wall hidden in shadow safe. Let whatever was happening happen. It wasn't his problem. This town had never done anything for him. These people who walked past him every day, like he was garbage, who chased him away from dumpsters and sprayed him with water and threatened to call police just for existing. Why should he risk anything for them? Why should he risk anything for anyone? But that crying. That muffled, terrified crying from a child who was probably even younger than him. It sounded like Ava. It sounded like his sister on the night of the fire, screaming his name, begging him to help, and he couldn't get to her, couldn't save her, couldn't do anything but watch their house burn with his mother and sister inside. "No," Marcus whispered. So quiet even he barely heard it. "Not again." The broken window was 3 feet to his left, covered in grime and spider webs, but with enough glass missing that he could see through if he shifted position. His body was already moving before his brain caught up every skill he'd learned about not being noticed now deployed to get him to that window without making a single sound. His bare feet, he'd lost his shoes 2 months ago, made no noise on the concrete. He crouched low, positioned himself at an angle where the darkness would hide him, and looked through the broken window into the sawmill. What he saw made his heart stop. 2 men, both big, both moving with the kind of confident efficiency that came from having done something like this before. They were dragging a little girl between them. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Pink pajamas with unicorns on them, blonde hair tangled and wild, her mouth covered by one man's gloved hand, her small body twisting and fighting against their grip. But she was so small, and they were so big. Her struggles meant nothing. The first man was checking his phone every few seconds, nervous, agitated, waiting for something. The second man was already pulling zip ties from his pocket, the heavy-duty kind, industrial, the kind that couldn't be broken by hand. He grabbed the girl's wrists and started securing them with movements so practiced, so automatic, that Marcus felt sick watching it. These weren't desperate men making a stupid choice. These were professionals. This was planned, organized. Someone had targeted this little girl specifically. Someone had hired these men. Someone had planned every detail of her disappearance. And Marcus was the only witness. The girl's eyes were wide with terror above the hand covering her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She'd gone from fighting to trembling, that horrible moment when fear becomes so overwhelming that your body starts shutting down. Marcus knew that feeling. He'd felt it in the group home when the footsteps came at night. He'd felt it when the fire surrounded him and he couldn't find a way out. The absolute helplessness of being small and powerless while big people decided your fate. The man finished securing her wrists and stepped back. The other man finally took his hand off her mouth but grabbed her shoulder instead, his grip clearly painful from the way she winced. She opened her mouth like she might scream. "Make a sound," the man said, leaning close to her face. "And I'll hurt you in ways you can't imagine. Understand?" The little girl's mouth snapped shut. Fresh tears flowed down her cheeks. Then the men started arguing. "We need to move her. Every minute we stay here increases the risk. We stay until I get the call. Those were the instructions. We wait for the location, then we move." "I don't like it. The timeline's wrong. Something's off." "You want to bail, fine. Bail. But you don't get paid. And you definitely don't want to explain to him why you left me alone with the merchandise." Merchandise. They called her merchandise. Like she was a package. A product. Not a terrified child who was probably calling out for her parents in her head right now, wondering why nobody was coming. Wondering if anyone even knew she was gone. Marcus's mind was racing. He was just a kid. 7 years old. Homeless. Barefoot. Starving. What could he possibly do against 2 grown men who did this kind of thing for a living? Nothing. The answer was nothing. He should stay hidden. Should wait until they left. Should be smart and silent and invisible the way he'd learned to be. But that little girl's face. Those eyes the same blue as Ava's. That trembling the same way Ava used to tremble during thunderstorms. That silent crying, the tears she couldn't stop even when she tried. She was someone's daughter. Someone's whole world. And she was alone and terrified and about to disappear into something Marcus didn't want to imagine. "I'm sorry, Ava," Marcus breathed. "I couldn't save you. But maybe I can save her." He didn't have a plan. Didn't have a weapon. Didn't have anything except a body that had learned to move through darkness without being seen, and a heart that wouldn't let him walk away from a child in danger. It wasn't enough. He knew it wasn't enough. But it was all he had. Marcus started moving along the outside of the sawmill looking for another way in. The main entrance was blocked by the men. But he knew this building. He'd explored every inch of it over the past 3 months, learning its secrets the way a homeless kid learns any space that might offer shelter or safety. The side entrance. The one with the gaps in the boards. Just big enough for a small body to slip through. His feet made no sound on the cold ground. His breathing was shallow, controlled. Every sense was heightened, every muscle tensed and ready. Behind him, he could hear the men still arguing, still distracted, still not paying enough attention to their captive. That was going to be their mistake. The side entrance was right where he remembered it. Boards nailed across the doorway, but with gaps wide enough for a boy who'd had plenty of practice making himself small. Marcus turned sideways and squeezed through, feeling splinters catch on his thin jacket, feeling the rough wood scrape against his ribs. For one terrible second, he thought he might be stuck. But then he was through inside the sawmill, breathing hard and trying to calm his hammering heart. The old offices were immediately to his right, half-collapsed walls providing cover. The floor littered with ancient paperwork, broken furniture, things that would make noise if he stepped wrong. Marcus picked his way through like he was navigating a minefield, testing each footfall before committing his weight, moving inch by inch toward the main space where the men held the little girl. Through the gaps in the office walls, he could see them. The nervous one still checking his phone. The aggressive one now smoking a cigarette, the glow of it bright in the darkness. And the little girl, sitting on the concrete floor with her hands tied in front of her, small and alone in the middle of that vast, empty space, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Marcus moved closer. 20 feet. 15. 10. And then the little girl turned her head, looked directly at the gap in the office wall, looked directly at Marcus. Their eyes met. For one frozen heartbeat, Marcus was certain she would scream, would alert the men, would ruin everything before it even started. But the little girl didn't scream. She just looked at him with those wide, terrified eyes. Looked at the homeless boy pressed against the wall, the kid nobody in town had ever really seen. And something passed between them. Something deeper than words. He was there. He saw her. He knew she was in danger, and he wasn't going to walk away. The little girl's expression shifted. The absolute despair on her face softened just slightly. Not hope exactly. She was too scared for that. But recognition. The understanding that she wasn't alone anymore. She gave the tiniest nod, so small the kidnappers would never notice. I see you too. Then she deliberately looked away, redirecting her gaze to the floor, giving nothing away. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he thought the men might hear it, but they were still arguing, still distracted, still unaware that a 7-year-old boy was about to do something incredibly stupid, or incredibly brave. He wasn't sure which one it was anymore. Maybe they were the same thing. The smoker flicked his cigarette away and headed toward the main door. I'm getting some air. This place smells like death. Don't go far. We move in 10 minutes, with or without the call. 10 minutes. Marcus had 10 minutes to figure out how to get a 5-year-old girl away from a professional kidnapper without getting them both killed. No pressure. He looked around the office space, searching for anything that might help. His eyes landed on a piece of broken metal on the floor. Sharp edge. Part of some old machinery. It wouldn't be enough to fight with. But it might be enough to cut zip ties. Marcus picked it up, feeling the weight in his hand. It wasn't much. But it was something. The nervous man was pacing now, walking in tight circles, checking his phone every few seconds. Each circuit took him further from the little girl toward the far side of the sawmill, 20 feet away from her. Now 30, now 40. This was the moment. The window that might never open again. Marcus moved. He stayed low, almost crawling, closing the distance as fast as he dared. The girl saw him coming and kept her eyes fixed on the floor, not giving any sign that anything was happening. Smart kid, brave kid. 15 feet, 10, 5. Then Marcus was beside her, dropping to his knees, his hands already reaching for the zip ties. This close, he could see how badly she was shaking. Could see the tear tracks on her dirty cheeks. Could see the raw fear in her eyes that she'd been holding back. Don't move, Marcus breathed. Barely a whisper. Don't make a sound. The little girl nodded, her whole body trembling. Marcus positioned the piece of metal against the zip tie and started sawing. The metal was dull. The plastic was thick. It was taking too long. The nervous man's pacing was bringing him back around. 20 seconds until he had a clear line of sight, maybe less. Marcus sawed faster. The plastic was fraying, starting to give way. Almost there. Almost. 15 seconds. The little girl's eyes were locked on the man tracking his movement. Her breath was coming in quick, shallow gasps. 10 seconds. The plastic was almost through. Just a few more strokes. 5 seconds. Marcus put everything he had into one final push. The zip tie snapped. The little girl's hands came free. Their eyes met for one crystal clear moment. Run, Marcus breathed. They moved. The nervous man turned around. His eyes found the empty spot where the girl had been sitting. Found the cut zip tie on the floor. Found 2 children running toward the back of the sawmill. His scream shattered the silence like a gunshot. She's loose. The kid's loose. The main door burst open as the smoker rushed back in. 2 grown men lunged after 2 small children across a warehouse full of debris and broken glass. And the race for their lives had begun. Marcus grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her forward. Her small fingers locked around his like he was the only solid thing left in the world. Don't look back, he hissed. Just run. Their feet pounded against the concrete floor. Behind them, the men's heavy boots were getting closer, faster. The sound of grown men who knew that 2 children had just destroyed whatever plan they'd spent weeks building. Get them! Get them! Lily stumbled. Her small sneakers caught on a piece of debris and she went down hard, her knees slamming against the floor. A cry escaped her lips before she could stop it. Marcus didn't hesitate. He yanked her back up, his thin arms straining against her weight. Come on, we have to go. I can't. Tears were streaming down her face. My legs won't. Yes, you can. Marcus looked directly into her eyes. 7 years old, but in that moment he sounded like someone much older. Someone who'd already learned that giving up meant dying. You can do this. I'm not leaving you. But you have to run. Something in his voice reached her. Lily nodded, wiping her face with her freed hands, and started moving again. But they'd lost precious seconds. Derek was closing the gap, his long legs eating up the distance between them. 20 feet. 15. Marcus's mind was racing. The back wall collapse, his original escape route, was straight ahead. But Lily couldn't squeeze through fast enough. She'd need help, need guidance, need time. They didn't have. He made the decision in a heartbeat. This way. Marcus pulled her sharply to the left, changing direction so suddenly that Lily almost fell again. But this path led to the main entrance. Wider. No squeeze required. More dangerous, but their only chance. Where are we going? Out, the front way. Don't stop no matter what. Vince had moved to cut off their angle. He was coming from the right side now, arms spread wide like he was herding cattle, his face twisted with fury and panic. You little brats! You think you're getting out of here. You think... Marcus grabbed a chunk of broken concrete from the floor and threw it without breaking stride. It caught Vince in the shoulder, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to make him flinch, enough to make him stumble. Go! Marcus screamed. They burst through the gap where the main door hung crooked on its hinges. Cold night air hit Marcus's face like a slap. The darkness outside was absolute, no streetlights this far from town, no houses, no witnesses, just 2 children and 2 men and the desperate mathematics of survival. The van! Derek shouted behind them. Get to the van! Cut them off! Marcus heard an engine roar to life somewhere in the darkness. Headlights sliced through the night, sweeping toward them like searchlights hunting escaped prisoners. Into the trees. Marcus pulled Lily toward the tree line at the edge of the sawmill property. They can't drive through the forest. I'm scared, Lily sobbed. I want my daddy. I want my daddy. I know you do. Just keep running. Please, just keep running. The ground changed beneath Marcus's bare feet. Concrete gave way to gravel, then to dirt and pine needles. Sharp stones bit into his soles. Something sliced across his heel deep enough that he felt warmth spreading blood mixing with the cold earth. He didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. The pain was just information. The blood was just a problem for later. Right now there was only forward. The trees swallowed them. Branches whipped at Marcus's face and arms. Lily was gasping for breath, her small body pushed far beyond its limits. 5 years old and running for her life in the darkness. Behind them, the van's headlights hit the tree line and stopped. Doors slammed. Flashlights clicked on. They went into the woods. Circle around. There's a road on the other side. Marcus's heart sank. He didn't know these woods well enough. He'd only ever skirted the edges, never gone deep. And now 2 grown men with flashlights in a vehicle were hunting them through terrain he didn't understand. Are they coming? Lily whispered. Her voice was raw, shredded by fear and exhaustion. Yes. Are we going to die? Marcus looked at her. This tiny girl in her pink unicorn pajamas, holding his hand in the darkness, trusting him completely, even though he was just a homeless kid who couldn't even take care of himself. No, he said, and he meant it. We're not going to die. I promise. It was a promise he had no right to make, but he made it anyway. They kept moving, slower now, picking their way through the underbrush, trying to stay quiet. The flashlight beams swept through the trees behind them, getting closer, then further, then closer again. Marcus's feet were screaming. Every step was agony. The slice on his heel had gone deep enough that he could feel the grit of dirt grinding into the wound with every footfall. But he didn't stop, didn't complain. Lily was watching him, and if he showed weakness, she would break. My daddy's going to find us, Lily whispered suddenly. He always finds me. When I hide during hide and seek, he always finds me, even when I'm really, really good at hiding. Your daddy? Marcus asked, partly to keep her talking, partly because the sound of her voice was the only thing keeping his own panic at bay. He's really strong, the strongest person in the whole world, and he has a motorcycle, the loudest one you ever heard. When I was little, I used to be scared of the noise, but now I love it because it means Daddy's home. A motorcycle. Something about that word nagged at Marcus's memory, something he'd seen in town. Leather jackets, patches, the way people moved out of the way when certain men walked down the sidewalk. What's your daddy's name, Lily? Daniel, but everyone calls him Titan. I don't know why. He's not a Titan, he's just my daddy. Marcus's blood went cold. He knew that name. Everyone in Copper Ridge knew that name. Daniel Titan Stone, president of the Hells Angels, the most dangerous man in the county. The kind of man other dangerous men were afraid of. And Marcus was holding his daughter's hand. "Lily," Marcus said slowly, "why did those men take you?" "I don't know. I was sleeping, and then they grabbed me and put something over my mouth, and I couldn't breathe, and then I woke up in that scary place with my hands tied and—" "Shh, it's okay, it's okay." Marcus pulled her behind a thick tree trunk as a flashlight beam swept close. "Stay quiet for a second." The beam passed. They started moving again. Marcus's mind was putting pieces together now. Kidnapping the daughter of a Hells Angels president. Ransom, probably. Or leverage. These men weren't just criminals. They were either very brave or very stupid. Or working for someone who thought they were untouchable. "I hear them." Derek's voice echoed through the woods. Closer than before. Much closer. "They're heading toward the creek. Cut them off at the bridge." Marcus didn't know where the creek was. Didn't know there was a bridge. But if the men knew the terrain and he didn't, this chase was already over. "Lily, I need you to do something really brave." "What?" "I need you to hide, right here behind this tree. Don't move. Don't make a sound, no matter what you hear." Lily's eyes went wide. "You're leaving me." "Just for a minute. I'm going to lead them away. Make them chase me instead of us." "No!" She grabbed his arm with both hands. "No! Don't leave me. Please, everyone leaves me. Mommy left me. And now you're going to leave me too." The words hit Marcus like a punch. This little girl had already lost her mother, had already known that particular kind of abandonment that leaves a hole in your chest that never quite fills. He knelt down in front of her, his feet screaming as heart-pounding flashlights getting closer by the second. But he made himself stop, made himself look into her eyes. "Lily, I'm not leaving you. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. Promise you'll come back. I promise. Just like I promised we wouldn't die. I keep my promises, okay?" Lily stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay. I trust you, Marcus." No one had trusted him in 18 months. No one had looked at him like he mattered, like his word meant something, like he was a person worth believing in. This 5-year-old girl, scared and alone in the dark, had just given him something precious, and he would die before he betrayed it. "Behind the tree. Stay low. Count to 100 and then count again. I'll be back before you get to 200. Lily squeezed behind the thick trunk, pulling her knees to her chest, making herself as small as possible. Marcus watched her for 1 second, burning the image into his memory. Then he turned and ran deliberately, crashing through the underbrush, making as much noise as possible. "There. That way." The flashlight beam swung toward him. Footsteps crashed through the woods. The hunt was on, and Marcus had made himself the prey. He ran until his lungs burned. Ran until his legs felt like they might collapse. The men were faster, their stride longer, but Marcus was smaller. He could duck under branches they had to go around, could squeeze through gaps they couldn't fit through, could turn on a dime while they had to slow down. "Stop running, you little rat. You're just making this worse." Marcus didn't answer, saved his breath for running. His bare feet found a patch of smooth rock and he pushed off hard, changing direction again, heading back the way he'd come, toward Lily, toward the promise he'd made. Derek's flashlight caught him for just a second, a glimpse of a thin boy, barefoot, bleeding, running through the darkness like a ghost. "He's heading back. He's circling around." Marcus burst through a wall of bushes and nearly crashed into Lily. She was exactly where he'd left her, crouched behind the tree, her face pale and tear-streaked in the darkness. "You came back," she breathed. "I keep my promises." Marcus grabbed her hand. "New plan. This way." He'd spotted something during his run. A culvert, the kind that ran under roads, draining water from one side to the other. Dark and scary, and exactly the kind of place 2 grown men would never think to look for children. "It's going to be tight," Marcus warned, "and wet and really dark, but they won't follow us." Lily looked at the black opening of the culvert. Then she looked at Marcus. Then she took a deep breath. "Okay." They crawled in. The water was freezing shallow but painfully cold. Marcus went first, pulling Lily behind him, moving by feel through the absolute darkness. The pipe was maybe 3 feet in diameter, plenty of room for 2 small children, impossible for a grown man. Behind them, they heard the men reach the culvert entrance. They're in the pipe. They went through the drainage pipe. Well, go after them. I can't fit you, idiot. Go around. There's a road up ahead, maybe half a mile. Cut them off when they come out. Footsteps retreated. The flashlight beams swept across the culvert entrance one more time, then disappeared. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Are they gone? Lily whispered. For now. Keep moving. We need to get out of here before they reach the other side. They crawled through the darkness. Marcus's hands found rock sleeves, something slimy that he didn't want to identify. The cold water soaked through his clothes, adding to the chill that had settled into his bones hours ago. But they were alive. They were together, and they were getting away. The culvert seemed to go on forever. 5 minutes. 10. Marcus's arms were shaking from the effort of crawling, his injured feet dragging behind him, leaving a trail of blood in the water that he tried not to think about. Marcus? Lily's voice was small, exhausted. Yeah. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. The question caught him off guard. He stopped crawling for a moment, his breath echoing in the pipe. Because you needed help. But nobody helps people they don't know. My daddy says you can't trust strangers. Your daddy's probably right. About most strangers. Marcus started moving again. But I'm not most strangers. Who are you then? Just a kid. Like you. Except nobody's looking for me. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm looking for you. Right now. You're right in front of me. Despite everything, the fear and the pain and the cold, Marcus felt something warm bloom in his chest. Something he'd forgotten existed. Connection. Being seen. Mattering to someone, even if that someone was a 5-year-old girl he'd met an hour ago. Thanks, Lily. You're welcome, Marcus. They kept crawling. The end of the culvert appeared as a lighter shade of black against the darkness. Marcus could hear running water, a stream, or small river on the other side. They were almost through. Okay, when we come out, we run straight for the trees on the other side. Don't stop, don't look around. Just... He never finished the sentence. A hand grabbed his ankle. Marcus screamed, pure terror ripping out of his throat before he could stop it. The grip was iron strong, yanking him backward, and for one horrible moment he thought Derek had somehow fit into the pipe, had followed them through the darkness like a nightmare given flesh. But it wasn't Derek. Marcus twisted around his eyes, adjusting to the dim light near the culvert's end, and saw a face he didn't recognize. An older man. Weathered face, gray beard, eyes that were studying him with an intensity that made Marcus's skin crawl. Well, well, the man said. What do we have here? Let me go. Marcus kicked at the hand, but the grip only tightened. Let me go, let me... Easy, kid. Easy. The man's voice was calm. Too calm. I'm not going to hurt you. Just need to figure out what's going on. Lily's face appeared behind Marcus, pale and terrified. Marcus, Marcus, what's happening? The man's eyes shifted to her, widened. Something flickered across his face that Marcus couldn't read. Holy hell, the man breathed. Is that... He looked back at Marcus. Is that Lily Stone? Marcus's heart stopped. How do you know her name? The man let go of Marcus's ankle and stepped back, giving them room to emerge from the culvert. He was wearing a leather vest, Marcus noticed. Patches on the front, and on the back, barely visible in the darkness, a design that Marcus had seen around town. Wings, a skull. Hell's Angels. I know her name because every angel in the state has been looking for her for the past 6 hours. The man pulled out a phone, its light blinding after so long in the darkness. The Amber Alert went out at 10 p.m. Her father's got 50 brothers riding through every town in the county. He's really looking for me. Lily pushed past Marcus, her exhaustion forgotten. My daddy's really coming. He's coming, sweetheart. He's been tearing this county apart. The man's eyes moved back to Marcus. And who are you? Nobody. Nobody saved Titan's daughter. The man's eyebrow raised. Nobody got her out of wherever she was being held. Marcus didn't answer. His instincts were screaming at him, the same instincts that had kept him alive for 18 months on the streets. This man might be a Hell's Angel, might be here to help, but Marcus had learned the hard way that adults couldn't be trusted. Even ones who seemed friendly at first. Especially ones who seemed friendly at first. I'm calling Titan, the man said, his fingers moving across the phone. He needs to know. A flashlight beam cut through the trees. There they are. By the creek. Derek's voice, close, getting closer. The Hell's Angels' demeanor changed instantly. The calm curiosity vanished, replaced by something cold and dangerous. Who's that? The men who took me, Lily said, her voice small. The bad men. Get behind me, both of you. Marcus grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her back. His whole body was trembling now, exhaustion and cold and fear finally catching up to him. But he didn't let go. Didn't stop watching. Derek emerged from the trees, Vince right behind him. They both stopped dead when they saw the Hell's Angels standing at the creek's edge. Oh crap, Vince whispered. Give us the girl. Derek's voice was strained, desperate. Just give us the girl and walk away. You never saw anything. You don't want any part of this. The Hell's Angel smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. See, that's where you're wrong. He cracked his knuckles. I've been wanting a part of this all night. He moved fast, faster than Marcus expected for a man his age. 1 second he was standing still, the next he'd closed the distance to Derek and put him on the ground with a single punch. Vince fumbled for something in his jacket. I've got a gun, The Angel was already there. He grabbed Vince's wrist, twisted, and the gun clattered to the ground. A knee to the stomach doubled Vince over. An elbow to the back of the head put him face first in the dirt. The whole thing took maybe 10 seconds. Marcus stared. He'd never seen anyone move like that. Never seen violence so controlled, so efficient, so utterly without hesitation. The Angel zip-tied both men's hands behind their backs, using their own supplies against them. Then he turned to Marcus and Lily, and his face softened into something that almost looked like kindness. It's over, kids. You're safe now. Lily burst into tears. Not scared tears this time. Relief. The kind of crying that comes when you've been holding everything in and suddenly you don't have to anymore. Marcus didn't cry. He couldn't. He was too tired, too cold, too far beyond normal emotions. He just stood there, Lily's hands still in his, watching the two men who'd tried to take her lying face down in the mud. Come on, the Angel said gently. Let's get you both somewhere warm. Titan's on his way. He reached out a hand. Lily took it immediately, but Marcus hung back. What about them? He nodded toward Derek and Vince. The Angel's eyes went cold again. Just for a second. Just long enough for Marcus to see something dangerous lurking beneath the surface. Don't worry about them. They'll be handled. Marcus didn't ask what handled meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. They walked through the woods, the Angel carrying Lily now because she couldn't keep her eyes open anymore. Marcus followed behind his bloody feet, leaving prints in the mud, his body running on nothing but adrenaline and the stubborn refusal to stop moving. 20 minutes later, they reached a road. A pickup truck was parked on the shoulder of the Angel's ride. He put Lily in the back seat, wrapped her in a blanket from the trunk, then turned to Marcus. You're bleeding pretty bad, kid. I know. You need a hospital. I need... Marcus stopped. He didn't know how to finish that sentence. What did he need? A hospital. A meal. A bed. A home. Everything. He needed everything. And he had nothing. Get in the truck. The Angel's voice was softer now. We'll figure it out. Marcus hesitated, his instincts still screaming, but his body was done. He couldn't run anymore, couldn't hide, couldn't do anything except stand there bleeding on a dark road, hoping that for once in his miserable life, an adult would actually help him. He got in the truck. The Angel started the engine and pulled onto the road. In the rearview mirror, Marcus could see the sawmill in the distance, the place that had been his home for 3 months. He'd never go back there now, wouldn't feel safe there even if he could. But looking at Lily asleep in the seat beside him, her small face peaceful for the first time since he'd first seen her, Marcus found that he didn't care. He'd saved her. For the first time in 18 months, he'd done something that mattered. He'd been seen. He'd been needed. He'd kept his promise. Whatever happened next, nobody could take that away from him. The truck drove on through the darkness, carrying 2 children toward whatever came next. Behind them, the woods grew silent. The creek continued its quiet flow. And somewhere in the mud near the culvert, 2 zip-tied men began to realize just how badly they'd miscalculated. They'd thought they were taking a little girl. They'd thought wrong. They'd awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. And now the Hells Angels were coming. All of them. The truck pulled into the police station parking lot, and Marcus counted the motorcycles before he counted anything else. 23. Chrome gleaming under the streetlights. Engines still ticking from recent arrival. Every single one positioned in a loose perimeter around the building, not blocking exits, but creating a presence that made the message crystal clear. The Hells Angels were here, and they weren't leaving without answers. "Stay close to me," the older angel said, killing the engine. "Both of you." Lily stirred in the seat beside Marcus, her eyes fluttering open. The moment she saw the motorcycles, something in her face changed. Hope. Pure, desperate hope. "Daddy's here." "He's here, sweetheart. Let's go find him." The angel came around and opened Lily's door, lifting her into his arms. Marcus climbed out on his own, wincing as his torn feet hit the asphalt. Every step was agony now. The adrenaline that had kept him running was gone, leaving nothing but raw nerve endings and exhaustion. "You okay, kid?" Marcus nodded. He wasn't okay. He was about as far from okay as a person could get. But he'd survived this long by pretending, and he wasn't going to stop now. They walked toward the station entrance. The glass doors reflected their approach. A thin, bloody boy. A sleeping girl in pink unicorn pajamas. A grizzled biker carrying them both toward whatever came next. The doors opened and Marcus stepped into chaos. The station was packed. Bikers and leather cops in uniform, everyone talking at once. The noise hit Marcus like a physical force after the silence of the woods. His body tensed, every instinct screaming at him to run, to hide, to find a corner where nobody could see him. But Lily's hand found his. Small fingers wrapping around his bloody palm, holding on like he was the only anchor in a storm. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please." Marcus squeezed back. "I'm not going anywhere." A cop noticed them first. Young guy barely older than a teenager himself, standing near a bench with a cup of coffee that he promptly dropped. "Holy, is that Sergeant?" Every head in the room turned. Every eye found the same target. The little girl in unicorn pajamas, awake now, looking around the station with wide eyes, searching for one face in the crowd. "Lily!" A woman's voice, high and breaking. A female officer pushed through the crowd, dropping to her knees in front of them. "Oh my God, Lily, are you hurt? Are you... I want my daddy." Lily's voice was small but firm. "Where's my daddy?" The older angel stepped forward. "Where's Titan?" "Back room. We've been trying to keep him calm, but get him. Now." The female officer stood hesitated for just a second, then turned and ran toward the back of the station. The crowd parted for her, every person in that room, understanding that what was about to happen was bigger than protocol, bigger than procedure, bigger than anything they'd ever witnessed in this building. Marcus watched them all. The cops with their hands near their weapons. The bikers with their crossed arms and hard eyes. Everyone waiting. Everyone watching. Everyone holding their breath. And then the back door opened. Daniel Titan Stone filled the doorway. 6'4" of muscle and barely contained fury. His leather vest displayed patches that told stories Marcus couldn't read. His scarred hands were clenched into fists at his sides. His face was a mask of tension so tight that the muscles in his jaw were visibly jumping. But it was his eyes that made the room go silent. Dark, intense. The eyes of a man who had spent the past 6 hours imagining every horrible thing that could happen to his daughter and fighting to stay sane. "Daddy?" Lily's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Titan's eyes found her. For one frozen second, nothing happened. His brain was processing, refusing to believe, terrified to hope. Then Lily broke free from the older angel's arms and ran, small feet pounding across the linoleum floor. Blanket falling away. Nothing else mattering except getting to the one person who made her feel safe. Titan dropped to his knees. This feared man. This legendary biker. This president of the Hells Angels, who had built a reputation on being unbreakable. He dropped to his knees on a police station floor so he'd be at his daughter's level when she reached him. Lily slammed into him so hard she almost knocked him over. His arms wrapped around her with a desperation that made several officers look away. Made the moment feel too private for witnesses. "I've got you." His voice cracked, shattered. Every wall he'd built over 52 years of hard living came crumbling down in those 3 words. "I've got you, baby girl. You're safe now. Daddy's here. Nobody's ever gonna hurt you again." "I was so scared, Daddy." Lily was sobbing into his chest. "I was so scared. They grabbed me from my bed and I couldn't scream and I thought you wouldn't find me and..." "Shh, shh, I've got you. I've got you." Titan pulled back just enough to look at her face. His scarred hands, the same hands that had broken bones and ended fights, and built a reputation that made grown men cross the street, cupped her cheeks with impossible gentleness. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? Tell me everything." "No, Daddy. I'm okay. I'm okay because..." Lily turned her eyes searching the crowd. "Because Marcus saved me." The name landed in the silence like a stone in still water. Titan's brow furrowed. "Who?" "Marcus. The boy. He snuck in when the bad men weren't looking, and he untied me and we ran and they chased us and he got hurt protecting me and..." Lily's words tumbled over each other too fast, too urgent. "He's right there, Daddy. That's him. That's Marcus." Every eye in the room followed her pointing finger. Every gaze landed on the same spot. The bench near the door. The bloody footprints on the floor leading to it. The thin boy sitting there with his shoulders hunched and his hands pressed against his stomach and his whole body tensed like he was ready to bolt but had nowhere left to run. Titan Stone looked at Marcus Cole for the first time, and something in his face changed. This was Aiden. This was the person who had saved his daughter. This small homeless child who looked like he hadn't had a decent meal in months, whose clothes were too thin for the weather, whose feet were wrapped in bloody rags, who sat there watching everyone with eyes that were too old for his face, too wary, too used to expecting the worst. Titan's brain was processing, putting pieces together. This homeless kid, this invisible child that his town had collectively decided wasn't worth noticing. This boy had done what 50 Hells Angels and an entire county's worth of police couldn't do. He'd found Lily. He'd freed her. He'd gotten her out. Him. Titan's voice was barely above a whisper. "Yes, Daddy. He saved my life." The station had gone completely silent. Even the dispatch radio seemed muted. Everyone was watching Titan's face, watching the legendary biker president grapple with the impossible mathematics of what he was hearing. Titan stood slowly. Lily clung to his hand as he started walking toward Marcus. Every step measured, every movement deliberate. His expression was unreadable, now controlled, but something burned behind his eyes. Something intense and complicated and raw. Marcus watched him approach and felt his heart hammering so hard it hurt. Every instinct screaming at him to run, to hide, to disappear the way he'd learned to disappear. But there was nowhere to go. His feet couldn't carry him. And this man, this dangerous, powerful man whose daughter he'd touched, was coming straight toward him. Marcus didn't know what to expect. Anger, maybe. Suspicion that he'd had something to do with the kidnapping itself. Dismissal because important people didn't really see kids like him. Or maybe just more of what he'd gotten from this town for 18 months. Nothing. Invisibility. The polite erasure that came from being someone society had decided didn't matter. Titan stopped 5 feet away, looked down at Marcus for a long moment. "You saved my daughter." It wasn't a question. But Marcus nodded anyway. "Why?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd expected a lot of things. Demands for details. accusations, maybe even gratitude. But not this. Not why. Because she needed help. You don't know her. No. You don't know me. No. You could have died. Those men, they would have killed you if they'd caught you. I know. Titan's eyes narrowed, searching Marcus's face for something, an angle, a motive, the hidden agenda that adults always had. But Marcus didn't have an agenda. He'd just seen a scared little girl and done the only thing he could live with. How old are you? 7. Something flickered across Titan's face. Pain, maybe, or recognition, or the slow dawning comprehension that the world was more broken than even he had realized. 7 years old, Titan repeated. And you ran into a building with 2 armed men for a girl you'd never met. She was scared. She reminded me of... Marcus stopped, swallowed. The memory of Ava was right there pressing against his chest, threatening to break him. She reminded me of someone. Who? My sister. She died in a fire, 18 months ago. The silence that followed was different now, heavier. Every person in that station who'd been listening, every cop and every biker felt the weight of that sentence settle over them. Titan's expression changed again. The searching quality left his eyes replaced by something softer, something that looked almost like understanding. Where are your parents, Marcus? Gone. Same fire. Foster care. Ran away. And since then... Marcus shrugged, a small, hopeless gesture that said everything about the past 18 months. I survive. Titan was quiet for a long moment. His scarred hands had stopped trembling. His jaw had unclenched. He looked at Marcus the way you might look at a puzzle you'd just figured out, except the picture made your heart break instead of your brain hurt. Then for the second time in 10 minutes, Daniel Titan Stone dropped to his knees. Not to hug his daughter this time. Not for relief or joy or the overwhelming gratitude of a father whose child had been returned to him. He knelt in front of a homeless 7-year-old boy on a police station bench, put himself at eye level, made himself equal with someone this town had treated as less than human. Every person in that station stopped breathing. The cops who'd spent 18 months moving Marcus along, telling him to find somewhere else to be. The shop owners who'd sprayed him with water and threatened to call police. The mothers who'd pulled their children away like he was contagious. They were all watching now, all seeing this legendary biker, this feared man, choose to humble himself before a child they'd never even noticed. Tell me what you need. 5 words. Simple words. But they carried the weight of everything Marcus had been denied for 18 months. Recognition. Gratitude. The promise that someone saw him, that someone cared. Marcus's mouth opened, but no words came out. His brain had stopped processing somewhere around the moment Titan knelt in front of him. This didn't happen. Not to kids like him. Important people didn't kneel, didn't ask questions, didn't look at homeless children like they were worth the effort of a conversation. Marcus's voice cracked. I don't... You hungry? Marcus nodded. Always hungry. Every day hungry. You got somewhere safe to sleep tonight? Marcus shook his head. You got people taking care of you, family, anyone looking out for you. Another shake. Slower this time. The shame of it burning in his chest, even though he knew he had nothing to be ashamed of. Titan took a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Then he stood, his full height restored, and turned to face his club members. The men who'd followed him into this station, who'd wait outside for days if he asked, who treated his word as law. This boy is under our protection now. His voice carried across the entire station. Clear, absolute, final, full protection. The biker straightened, listening. He needs a home, we find it. Needs food, he eats with us. Needs clothes, school, medical care, whatever he needs, he gets it. Not just today, not just this week, forever. Titan's eyes swept across his men. We clear. Clear press. The response came in unison, 20 voices speaking as one. Titan turned back to Marcus. Something fierce burned in his expression, something that looked like a promise carved in stone. You saved what matters most to me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you matter to someone too." Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. Something that had been frozen solid for 18 months. Something he'd thought was dead and buried along with his family. Someone had asked what he needed. Someone had seen him. Someone had cared enough to ask. And he had absolutely no idea how to respond. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't need anything. I just wanted her to be safe." "I know." Titan's voice was gentle now. "That's what makes you worth protecting." Lily had been watching from behind her father's legs. Now she stepped forward, still clutching his hand, and looked at Marcus with those wide blue eyes. "Daddy, can Marcus come home with us?" The question hung in the air, simple, direct, the kind of question only a 5-year-old would have the courage to ask. Titan looked at his daughter, looked at Marcus, looked at the bloody footprints trailing across the station floor, at the thin frame and the old eyes, and the fierce, stubborn spirit that had driven a 7-year-old to risk his life for a stranger. "Yeah, baby girl." His voice was rough with emotion. "Marcus can come home with us." Marcus felt his knees buckle. Would have fallen if one of the bikers hadn't stepped forward and caught him. "Whoa, easy there, kid. You're okay, you're okay." But Marcus wasn't okay. He was crying. For the first time in 18 months, tears were streaming down his face, and he couldn't stop them, couldn't control them, couldn't do anything but shake in a stranger's arms while everything he'd been holding back came flooding out. "I want." He choked on the words. "I want." "What do you want?" "Marcus." Titan's voice was close now. "Tell me." "I want to go home." The words came out broken, desperate. "I just want to go home, but I don't have a home anymore. I don't have anywhere. I don't have anyone. I don't." "You do now." Titan's hand landed on Marcus's shoulder, heavy, warm, the first gentle touch Marcus had felt in 18 months. "You have us now, the whole club. You understand? You're not alone anymore." Marcus looked up at him through tear-blurred eyes. This terrifying man with scarred knuckles and a reputation that made grown men tremble. This father who'd dropped to his knees twice in one night, once for his daughter, and once for a homeless boy nobody else had ever seen. "Why?" Marcus whispered. "You don't know me. Why would you?" "Because that's what we do." Titan's grip tightened slightly. "We protect our own. And from this moment forward, kid, you're ours." The older angel who'd found them stepped forward. "Prez the men who took her. They're zip-tied about half a mile from the sawmill. We should—" "I know." Something cold flickered in Titan's eyes. Something that made Marcus very glad he wasn't Derek or Vince right now. "Send 6 brothers to collect them, and tell them to take their time getting back." The older angel nodded and stepped away, already pulling out his phone. "What's going to happen to them?" Marcus asked. He didn't know why he was asking. Maybe because the exhaustion was making him brave, or stupid, or both. Titan looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Justice." That was all he said. That was all he needed to say. The female officer approached hesitantly. "Mr. Stone, we need to take statements, and the boy needs medical attention. His feet are in pretty bad shape." "Fine." Titan's hand stayed on Marcus's shoulder. "But I'm not leaving him. Either of them." "Of course, we can do everything here. I'll call the paramedics." She hurried off. Titan guided Marcus to a bench, easing him down like he was made of glass. "Let me see those feet, kid." Marcus looked down at his bloody rags. He'd almost forgotten about the pain. Almost. But now that everything was stopping, now that the running was over, it came rushing back. Every cut, every scrape, every piece of glass embedded in his torn soles. "It's not that bad." "You're lying." Titan's voice was matter-of-fact. "You're tough, I can see that. But you're also bleeding all over my town's police station. Let me look." Marcus surrendered. Let Titan unwrap the makeshift bandages. Let him see the damage. It was worse than Marcus had thought. Deep cuts crisscrossing both feet. Some still bleeding, some already starting to swell with infection. The slice on his heel was the worst, a jagged wound that would definitely need stitches. Titan's expression went dark. You ran through the woods on these... Had to. They were chasing us. How far? I don't know. Half a mile. Maybe more. Titan was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. Might have been awe. Might have been both. You know how many grown men would have given up, would have hidden themselves and let the girl fend for herself? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. Most of them. Titan answered his own question. Most grown men would have stayed hidden, stayed safe. Let someone else be the hero. He shook his head slowly. You're 7 years old. You're homeless. You're barefoot and starving, and you've got nothing in the world except a plastic bag full of scraps. And you ran into danger for a stranger. She's not a stranger anymore. Titan blinked. What? Lily. Marcus's voice was quiet. She's not a stranger anymore. We went through something together. That makes her, I don't know, something more than a stranger. For the third time that night, Marcus saw Titan Stone's expression soften. Saw the dangerous man give way to something else. Something human. Yeah, Titan said quietly. I guess it does. The paramedics arrived. They fussed over Marcus's feet, cleaning the wounds, picking out debris, applying antiseptic that stung like fire. Marcus didn't cry, didn't flinch, just sat there with his jaw clenched and his hands gripping the bench, enduring it the way he'd learned to endure everything. Lily climbed up onto the bench beside him, took his hand without asking. Does it hurt? A little. You're being really brave. So are you. She smiled at that. The first real smile Marcus had seen on her face since the nightmare began. It lit up her whole face, made her look like what she was. A 5-year-old kid who'd been through something terrible but was already starting to heal. My daddy's going to take care of us both now, she said. He promised. And my daddy never breaks promises. Marcus looked at Titan, who was standing a few feet away on the phone, his voice low and urgent, making arrangements, giving orders, doing whatever it was that biker presidents did when their daughters had been kidnapped and rescued by homeless children. He seems like a good dad. The best. Lily squeezed his hand. And now he can be your dad too, if you want. Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. The word dad felt foreign in his mouth, a relic from another life that he'd stopped believing in. But sitting there in that police station with Lily's small hand in his and the warmth of the club's protection settling around him like a blanket, Marcus let himself imagine it. A home, a family, someone who noticed when he walked through the door. It seemed impossible, too good to be true. The kind of thing that happened to other kids, the lucky ones, the ones who'd never had to dig through dumpsters for food or sleep behind sawmills in the cold. But maybe, just maybe impossible things could happen to kids like him too. If you believe every child deserves someone to ask, "What do you need?" comment those exact words right now. What do you need? Let's fill this comment section with the question Marcus waited 18 months to hear. And stay with us, because what happens next will change everything for this town. The call came in at 2:47 a.m. Titan was still at the police station, still standing guard over both children when his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and something in his face changed, hardened, became something that made the officers nearby take an unconscious step back. Yeah. The voice on the other end was barely audible to anyone except Titan. But Marcus, sitting on the bench with his freshly bandaged feet, caught fragments, enough to understand that something significant was happening. You sure? Titan's voice was ice. Absolutely sure. More words from the phone. Don't touch him. Not yet. I want to look him in the eyes first. Titan ended the call and stood very still for a moment. His knuckles were white around the phone. His jaw was clenched so tight that Marcus could see the muscles jumping. Daddy. Lily had fallen asleep against Marcus's shoulder, but Titan's energy had woken her. What's wrong? Nothing, baby girl. Go back to sleep. You're making your scary face. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Marcus could see that. Whatever had been said on that phone call had shifted something fundamental in Titan's demeanor. The relieved father was gone. In his place stood the Hells Angels president, and he was ready for war. Big Mike, Titan's voice carried across the station. A massive biker, easily 6'6", with arms like tree trunks, stepped forward. Stay with the kids. Don't let them out of your sight. Anyone comes near them who isn't wearing our patch, you handle it. Got it, Prez. Titan knelt down in front of Marcus and Lily, his expression softening for just a moment. I have to take care of something. Big Mike's going to watch over you both until I get back. You trust me? Lily nodded immediately. Always, Daddy. Titan's eyes moved to Marcus, waiting. Marcus studied the big man's face. He'd spent 18 months learning to read people, learning to spot the lies behind smiles and the danger behind kind words. And right now, looking at Titan Stone, he saw something he hadn't expected. Genuine concern. For him. For a homeless kid nobody had ever cared about before. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I trust you. Good. Titan stood. I'll be back soon. Try to get some sleep. He walked out of the station without looking back. 5 other bikers fell into step behind him, their faces grim, their movements purposeful. The door swung shut, and the rumble of motorcycles filled the night. Big Mike settled into a chair across from the bench, his bulk making the furniture creak in protest. Despite his intimidating size, his voice was surprisingly gentle when he spoke. You kids need anything, water, food? I think there's a vending machine around here somewhere. I'm okay, Lily mumbled, already drifting back to sleep. Marcus's stomach growled loudly, betraying him. He hadn't eaten anything substantial in nearly 2 days. The hunger had become background noise, but now that someone was offering food, his body was screaming for it. Big Mike heard the growl and smiled. I'll take that as a yes. Sit tight. He walked to the vending machine, fed it a handful of coins, and returned with an armful of snacks. Chips, candy bars, a bottle of water. He spread them out on the bench next to Marcus like a feast. Eat slow, Big Mike warned. If you haven't had real food in a while, eating too fast will make you sick. Marcus looked at the food, then at Big Mike, then back at the food. Why are you being nice to me? The question seemed to catch Big Mike off guard. What do you mean? Everyone in this town. Marcus's voice was quiet, careful, like he was admitting something shameful. They all treat me like I'm garbage, like I'm not even human. Why are you different? Big Mike was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled his chair closer and leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. You want to know a secret, kid? Before I found the club, I was you. Marcus blinked. What? 14 years old, living on the streets of Detroit. Parents were dead, foster system chewed me up and spit me out, and I spent 2 winters sleeping under bridges because nobody gave a damn whether I lived or died. Marcus stared at him. This massive man, this terrifying biker who looked like he could break someone in half without trying, had been homeless, had been a kid with nowhere to go and nobody to care. How did you... Marcus couldn't finish the question. Survive, get out. Big Mike shrugged. The club found me, same way we found you tonight. Someone saw me when nobody else would. Someone decided I was worth saving. And now you do the same thing. Now I do the same thing. Big Mike nodded toward the snacks. Eat, kid. You've earned it. Marcus picked up a candy bar, unwrapped it slowly, took a small bite, and felt the chocolate melt on his tongue. It was the sweetest thing he'd tasted in 18 months. His eyes burned. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears that kept threatening to fall. It's okay, Big Mike said quietly. It's okay to feel it. After what you've been through, after what you did tonight, nobody's going to judge you for crying. I'm not crying. Of course you're not. Big Mike's voice was understanding. Just got something in your eyes. Marcus ate another bite of the candy bar, then another. The tears came anyway, sliding down his cheeks while he chewed, and he didn't try to stop them this time. Lily's hand found his again. She was awake, watching him with those wide blue eyes. It's okay, Marcus. I cried too. Crying doesn't mean you're not brave. How do you know? Because my daddy told me. He said the bravest people in the world still cry. They just do what needs to be done anyway. Marcus looked at this little girl 5 years old, still wearing her dirty unicorn pajamas, still holding his hand like he mattered. She'd been through something terrible tonight. They both had. But here she was comforting him instead of the other way around. Your daddy's smart. The smartest? Lily smiled. And now you get to find out for yourself. The night stretched on. Marcus dozed off against the bench, waking every few minutes to the unfamiliar sensation of being watched over. Big Mike never moved from his post, never complained, never made Marcus feel like he was a burden. At 4:30 a.m., Sergeant Foster approached them cautiously. He'd been watching Marcus all night with an expression that Marcus couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe, or shame. The boy's going to need a statement, Foster said to Big Mike. When he's ready, no rush. He's 7 years old, Big Mike replied. And he just saved a little girl from 2 armed kidnappers. He can give his statement when Titan gets back. I understand, but when Titan gets back? Foster hesitated, then nodded and walked away. Marcus watched him go. He keeps looking at me weird. That's because he's remembering every time he told you to move along, every time he pretended not to see you. Big Mike's voice was matter-of-fact. A lot of people in this town are going to be doing that over the next few days. Remembering, realizing. Realizing what? That they walked past a hero every single day. That they ignored a kid who had more courage in his pinky finger than most of them have in their whole bodies. Big Mike's eyes were hard. That they failed you. And now the whole world is going to know it. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of himself as a hero. He'd just done what needed to be done. The station doors opened again at 5:15 a.m. Marcus's head snapped up, his body tensing automatically, but it was just officers returning from shift change. Normal activity, normal noise. But then at 5:47, the doors opened again. And this time Marcus felt the shift in the room's energy like a physical force. Titan walked in first. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes. Satisfaction, maybe. Or the cold pleasure of justice served. Behind him, 6 bikers escorted 2 men in handcuffs. Not police handcuffs, zip ties. The same kind Derek and Vince had used on Lily. Derek and Vince themselves looked like they'd been through a war. Derek had a black eye swelling shut and a split lip that was still bleeding. Vince was limping badly, favoring his left leg, his face pale with pain. But they were alive. They were walking. And they were being delivered to the police station instead of a shallow grave. Marcus understood suddenly what that meant. What it cost Titan to bring them here instead of handling things the way the Hells Angels usually handled things. Sergeant Foster, Titan's voice carried across the room. These are the men who kidnapped my daughter. They've agreed to provide full confessions. Foster stared at the 2 beaten men. They've agreed enthusiastically. Titan's smile was thin and cold. They also have information about who hired them. I think you're going to find it very interesting. Hired them, Derek spoke up, his voice trembling. It wasn't our idea. We were just the muscle. Someone paid us. Paid us a lot. Who? Foster demanded. Derek's eyes flickered to Titan, then back to Foster. Fear was pouring off him in waves. Fear of the police. Fear of the Hells Angels. But most of all, fear of what would happen if he didn't cooperate. Gerald Morrison. The name dropped into the silence like a bomb. Foster's face went pale. Morrison, as in the owner of Morrison Development. As in the guy who's been trying to buy up half this county for the past 3 years. Titan's voice was ice. As in the man who's been pushing to have the Hells Angels run out of Copper Ridge so he can turn our town into condos and strip malls. He paid us $50,000 each, Vince added, his voice desperate. $50,000 to grab the girl and hold her for 48 hours. He said it would break stone, said it would destroy the angels. Said once you were weak, he'd swoop in and... Enough. Foster held up his hand. His face had gone from pale to flushed with anger. You're saying Gerald Morrison, one of the most prominent businessmen in Colorado, hired you to kidnap a 5-year-old girl? Yes. Yes, that's exactly what we're saying. Please, just get us somewhere safe, away from him. Derek jerked his head toward Titan. He's crazy. He's going to kill us. Titan laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead, but my daughter's safe, and the whole world is about to know exactly what kind of man Gerald Morrison really is. He turned to Foster. I trust you'll handle the arrest personally. Sergeant, I'd hate for this to get lost in the system. Foster straightened. Consider it handled. The officers took custody of Derek and Vince, leading them toward the booking area. Both men looked relieved to be in police custody, which told Marcus everything he needed to know about how their night with the Hells Angels had gone. Titan walked over to the bench where Marcus and Lily were sitting. He crouched down in front of them, his eyes sweeping over both children, cataloging their condition. You two okay? We're okay, Daddy. Lily reached out and touched his face. You got hurt. Marcus noticed it now, a bruise forming on Titan's jaw, scraped knuckles, the evidence of violence that had happened out in the darkness. Just a scratch baby girl, nothing to worry about. Did you find the bad man, the one who made them take me? Titan's jaw tightened. We know who he is. The police are going to arrest him. And then what? And then he's going to spend a very long time in prison. Titan's voice was controlled, careful, but Marcus heard what was underneath. The rage. The barely contained desire to handle Gerald Morrison the same way he'd handled Derek and Vince. Nobody hurts my family and gets away with it. Nobody. Big Mike stood up from his chair, stretching his massive frame. Press, what's the play? We take the kids home. Get them cleaned up, fed, rested. Tomorrow. Titan's eyes flickered to Marcus. Tomorrow we start figuring out the long term. Long term? Marcus is under our protection now. That means we need to do this right. Legal. Proper. Titan's expression softened. I meant what I said, kid. You're one of us now. And that means we're going to make sure you have everything you need. Marcus felt his chest tighten. I don't understand. What's not to understand? I'm nobody. I'm a homeless kid. Why would you... Stop. Titan's voice was firm but gentle. You're not nobody. You're the kid who saved my daughter's life. You're the bravest person I've met in 30 years. And from now on, you're family. End of discussion. Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. Can Marcus have the room next to mine? The one with the big window? He can see the mountains from there. Titan looked at his daughter, looked at Marcus, and for the first time since the nightmare began, he smiled. A real smile. Warm and genuine and full of promise. Yeah, baby girl. Marcus can have that room. Marcus didn't know what to say, didn't know how to process what was happening. 24 hours ago, he'd been invisible, a ghost in his own town. Now he was being offered a room with a view of the mountains in a house with people who actually seemed to want him there. What if I mess it up? The words came out before he could stop them. What if I do something wrong and you change your mind? Titan's expression shifted, became serious, became something that demanded Marcus's full attention. Listen to me, kid. I don't change my mind. When I make a commitment, I keep it. You could burn down my house, wreck my bike, and tell me I'm the worst person you've ever met, and I would still make sure you had a roof over your head and food in your stomach. That's what family means. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Marcus's eyes were burning again. He blinked hard, but it didn't help. I've never had a family. Not since the fire. I don't know how to. You'll learn. We'll teach you. Titan stood and offered his hand. Come on, let's get you home. Marcus stared at that hand. Scarred knuckles, calloused palm, the hand of a man who'd built a reputation on violence and fear. But it was also the hand of a father, a protector, someone who'd dropped to his knees in front of a homeless child and asked what he needed. Marcus took it. Titan pulled him gently to his feet, careful of his bandaged feet. Big Mike moved to the other side, ready to catch him if he stumbled. Can you walk? I think so. If you can't, one of us will carry you. No shame in it. They walked out of the police station together, Marcus limping between Titan and Big Mike, Lily holding her father's other hand. A strange little family formed in the space of a single night. The sun was rising over Copper Ridge, pink and gold streaking across the sky, painting the mountains in colors that Marcus had stopped noticing somewhere in the endless gray of survival. But he noticed them now, noticed how beautiful they were, noticed how the air smelled like pine and possibility, and something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. A truck was waiting in the parking lot, not a motorcycle. Titan was thinking practically making sure both children could travel safely. In you go. Big Mike lifted Marcus into the back seat like he weighed nothing. Lily scrambled in beside him. Titan took the driver's seat. Everyone buckled. Yes, Daddy. Marcus fumbled with the seatbelt. It had been so long since he'd been in a car that he'd almost forgotten how they worked. But he got it clicked eventually. Yeah, I'm good. Titan pulled out of the parking lot. The police station receded in the rearview mirror. The sawmill. The streets Marcus had walked for 18 months. The dumpsters he'd searched for food. The corners where he'd been invisible. All of it falling away behind him. Where are we going? Marcus asked. Home. Titan's voice was simple, certain. We're going home. Marcus leaned his head against the window and watched Copper Ridge slide past. The coffee shop where Mr. Patterson had screamed at him. The grocery store where Wilson had threatened him with a bat. The sidewalk where mothers pulled their children away like he was contagious. He'd walked these streets for 18 months. Invisible. Ignored. Treated like he didn't exist. But now he was riding through them in a truck with the most powerful man in town. Now he was being taken somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere he might actually belong. The businesses were starting to open for the day. People were walking dogs, getting coffee, starting their morning routines. Normal people living normal lives. And every single one of them had walked past Marcus at some point, had looked through him, had decided he wasn't worth their time or attention. They didn't know yet. Didn't know that the homeless boy they'd ignored had saved the life of the Hells Angels president's daughter. Didn't know that their whole town was about to be confronted with the truth of its own failure. But they would. Soon enough. The story was already spreading. Marcus had seen the officers talking, had heard fragments of whispered conversations. By noon, everyone in Copper Ridge would know what had happened, would know who Marcus was, would have to reckon with how they'd treated him. You okay, kid? Titan's eyes found his in the rearview mirror. I don't know, Marcus answered honestly. I think so, maybe. That's fair. You've been through a lot. It's going to take time to process it all. What happens now, I mean, with the police and the statements and everything? We handle it one step at a time. First priority is getting you healthy, fed, rested. Everything else can wait. But the man who hired them, Morrison. Titan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Morrison is going to be arrested within the hour. I have friends who will make sure he doesn't slip out of this. By tonight, his face will be on every news channel in the state. And then justice. Real justice. The kind that happens in courtrooms with judges and juries. Titan's voice was controlled, but Marcus heard the rage underneath. I wanted to handle it differently. Wanted to show him exactly what happens when you threaten my family. But my daughter is safe, and you're safe, and putting Morrison in prison where he can rot for the rest of his life matters more than my revenge. Marcus thought about that. About a man powerful enough to kidnap a Hells Angels daughter, rich enough to hire professionals, arrogant enough to think he'd get away with it. He thought he was untouchable. Most men like him do. They spend so long at the top surrounded by people who tell them yes that they start believing the rules don't apply to them. Titan shook his head. He forgot the first rule of power, kid. Never ever mess with someone's children. The truck turned onto a road that Marcus didn't recognize. They were heading into the foothills now, away from town, into the territory that Marcus had never explored because it was too far from the places where he could find food. Is your house far? About 10 more minutes. It's up in the hills. Private. Safe. Titan's voice softened. You're going to like it, I think. Lots of space. Fresh air. Room to breathe. Marcus couldn't imagine it. Couldn't picture himself in a real house with real rooms and real furniture. He'd spent so long sleeping on concrete and dirt that the concept of a bed seemed almost foreign. I might not sleep well, he warned. I'm used to staying alert, watching for danger. That's okay. We've got a room for you with a lock on the inside. If you need to feel safe, you can lock your door. Nobody will judge you for it. Marcus blinked. You'd let me lock my door. It's your room, kid, your space. What happens in there is up to you. Nobody had ever given Marcus space before. Not since the fire. Not since his world collapsed and he became just another problem for the system to handle. Lily had fallen asleep again, her head resting against Marcus's shoulder. Her breathing was soft and steady, the sleep of a child who knew she was safe. Marcus looked at her, this little girl in her dirty unicorn pajamas. The reason he was here instead of behind the sawmill, the reason everything had changed. She'd called him brave, had held his hand when he needed comfort, had asked her father if he could come home with them like it was the most natural thing in the world. 5 years old. She didn't see a homeless kid, didn't see a burden or a problem. She just saw Marcus. Maybe that was the real miracle of this whole night. Not that he'd survived, not that he'd escaped, but that someone finally had looked at him and seen a person worth caring about. We're here. Titan's voice pulled Marcus from his thoughts. The truck had stopped in front of a house that Marcus could only stare at. It wasn't a mansion, not fancy or ostentatious, but it was real and solid and permanent in a way that made Marcus's chest ache. Stone walls, big windows, a porch with chairs where you could sit and watch the sunrise. A home, an actual home. This is where you live. This is where we live. Titan killed the engine and turned to face him. Come on, let's get you inside. Big Mike was already opening Marcus's door, reaching in to help him down. Titan gently lifted Lily without waking her. They walked toward the house together. Marcus limping Big Mike, steadying him, Titan carrying his sleeping daughter. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the doorway, her face a mixture of relief and concern. She was older than Titan, with gray-streaked hair and kind eyes that immediately found Lily. Oh, thank God, thank God. She's okay, Sarah. Titan's voice was gentle. She's tired and scared, but she's okay. And this is... Sarah's eyes moved to Marcus. This is Marcus, the boy who saved her. Sarah's expression changed, shifted from concern to something deeper, something that looked almost like reverence. You're Marcus. Yes, ma'am. I've heard about you. Titan called from the station. Sarah stepped forward and before Marcus could react, pulled him into a hug. Thank you. Thank you for bringing her back to us. Marcus stood frozen. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him. Couldn't remember the last time an adult had touched him with kindness instead of violence or indifference. His voice cracked. I just did what I had to do. No, you did what most people wouldn't. There's a difference. Sarah pulled back, keeping her hands on his shoulders. You look exhausted, and those feet need proper care. Come inside. We'll get you sorted. She ushered them into the house. Marcus's bare feet touched carpet soft and warm, and he nearly cried at the sensation. First things first. Sarah said, all business now. Bath, clean clothes, food, bed, in that order. I can help with the bath, Titan offered. I can do it myself, Marcus said quickly. Too quickly. The memories of the group home of the man who came at night were suddenly too close to the surface. Everyone went quiet. Titan and Sarah exchanged a look that held years of understanding. Of course you can, Sarah said gently. I'll show you the bathroom, get you everything you need, and you can take all the time you want. Lock the door if you want. We'll be right outside if you need anything. Marcus felt the tension drain from his shoulders. They understood. They weren't going to push. weren't going to make him feel like he was wrong for being scared. Thank you. The bathroom was bigger than the entire space Marcus had been living in behind the sawmill. A real bathtub, hot water, soap that smelled like something clean and fresh. Sarah laid out towels, pointed out where everything was, and then left him alone, true to her word. Marcus locked the door behind her, stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then he turned on the hot water and watched the tub fill. When he finally lowered himself into the water, he had to bite his lip to keep from crying out. Not from pain, though his feet stung where the cuts met the heat, but from the sheer, overwhelming sensation of warmth, of comfort, of something his body had forgotten existed. He stayed in that tub until the water went cold. Then he drained it, refilled it, and stayed until it went cold again. When he finally emerged, dressed in clean clothes that were too big for him, but smelled like fabric softener instead of garbage, he felt like a different person. Still scared, still wary, but cleaner, lighter, like he'd washed away some of the weight he'd been carrying. Sarah was waiting in the hallway. Feel better? Yes, thank you. There's food in the kitchen. Nothing fancy, just eggs and toast, but it's hot and it's yours. Marcus followed her to a kitchen that seemed impossibly bright and warm. A plate was waiting for him at the table. Eggs, toast, a glass of orange juice. He sat down and stared at it. All this food, just for him. Nobody was going to chase him away. Nobody was going to tell him he didn't belong here. Eat, Sarah urged, before it gets cold. Marcus picked up the fork, took a bite, and then another, and another. He ate until the plate was empty. And when Sarah asked if he wanted more, he nodded and she made him another plate without a single complaint. This is what it felt like to be cared for. This is what he'd been missing for 18 months. And as the sun rose higher over Copper Ridge, as the town began to wake up and learn the truth about what had happened in the night, Marcus allowed himself to believe just for a moment that maybe everything really was going to be okay. If you've ever been hungry and someone finally fed you, if you've ever been cold and someone finally gave you warmth, comment "finally home." And if you want to see what happens when this town faces the truth about how they treated Marcus, stay with us. The reckoning is just beginning. The news broke at 7:00 a.m. Marcus was still at the kitchen table working on his third glass of orange juice when Sarah turned on the television. The local morning show had interrupted their regular programming for breaking news. Prominent Colorado developer Gerald Morrison arrested in connection with kidnapping of 5-year-old girl. Marcus stopped drinking, stared at the screen. A mugshot appeared showing a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. This was the man who had ordered his kidnapping, the man who had paid $50,000 to have Lily snatched from her bed. Sources tell us that Morrison allegedly hired 2 men to kidnap Lily Stone, daughter of Daniel Stone, president of the Copper Ridge chapter of the Hells Angels motorcycle club. The child was rescued by a 7-year-old homeless boy who had been living behind an abandoned sawmill. Marcus's face appeared on screen, not his current face. A photo from somewhere, maybe a school record from before the fire, showing a younger version of himself with a smile he didn't recognize anymore. The boy, identified as Marcus Cole, had been homeless for approximately 18 months following a house fire that claimed the lives of his mother and younger sister. Despite having no resources and no support from the community, the child managed to infiltrate the location where the victim was being held free, her from her restraints, and lead her to safety while being pursued by 2 armed men. Sarah muted the television. Her hands were shaking. Marcus, I'm so sorry. For what? For all of it. For what this town did to you. For what we should have done but didn't. Sarah's voice cracked. 18 months. You were out there for 18 months and nobody helped you. Nobody even tried. Marcus didn't know how to respond. He'd gotten so used to being invisible that the sudden visibility felt strange, uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that didn't fit. It's okay. No, it's not okay. None of this is okay. Sarah wiped her eyes. But it's going to be different now. I promise you that. Titan walked into the kitchen, his phone pressed to his ear. His expression was grim. Yeah, I understand. Keep me updated. He ended the call and looked at Sarah. Morrison's lawyer is already trying to get him out on bail. Will it work? Not a chance. I've got friends making sure of that. He's not getting out until his trial, and his trial isn't going to go well for him. Good, Sarah's voice was hard. That man deserves to rot. Titan's eyes moved to Marcus. Something in his expression then softened. How you holding up, kid? I'm okay, I think. The news is going to get crazier before it gets better. Your story is spreading fast. By noon, every outlet in the state is going to want to talk to you. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Talk to me. Don't worry. Nobody's getting near you without my permission, but you should know what's coming. Titan sat down across from him. You're about to become very visible, Marcus, for the first time in a long time. I don't want to be visible. I know, and that's okay. You don't have to do any interviews. Don't have to say anything to anyone. But people are going to be looking at you differently now. Looking at what this town did to you. And a lot of them are going to feel ashamed. Why? Because they should have done something. Should have noticed a 7-year-old kid living on the streets. Should have asked questions. Should have cared. Titan's voice was matter of fact. They didn't. And now the whole world knows it. Marcus thought about Mr. Patterson at the coffee shop, about Wilson at the grocery store, about all the mothers who had pulled their children away from him like he was dangerous. Are they going to be mad at me? Mad at you? Titan's eyebrows rose. Kid, you saved my daughter's life. If anyone in this town has a problem with you, they can take it up with me personally. Titan. Sarah's voice was gentle, warning. I'm serious. Anyone gives this kid a hard time, they answer to the club, no exceptions. Marcus looked down at his empty plate. He'd never had anyone protect him before, not since his mother died. The feeling was strange, foreign, but not bad. Can I see Lily? Titan smiled. She's been asking for you. Kept waking up during the night saying she wanted to make sure you were still here. Where is she? In her room, probably awake by now. Titan stood. Come on, I'll take you up. They walked through the house together. Marcus was still limping, but the pain in his feet had dulled to a manageable ache. The carpet was soft under his bandaged soles. Everything was soft here. Everything was warm. Lily's door was covered in butterfly stickers. Titan knocked twice. Baby girl, you awake? Daddy. The door flew open. Lily stood there in fresh pajamas, these ones covered in rainbows instead of unicorns. Her face was clean, her hair brushed, and her eyes went wide when she saw Marcus. Marcus! She launched herself at him so hard he almost fell over. Her arms wrapped around his waist, squeezing tight. You're still here. You didn't leave. I told you I wouldn't. I know, but I was scared anyway. I had a dream that you disappeared and I couldn't find you anywhere. Marcus looked at Titan, unsure what to do. Titan just nodded, a small smile on his face. I'm not going anywhere, Lily. I promise. You have to promise for real, like pinky promise. She held up her small finger. That's the most serious kind. Marcus hooked his pinky around hers. Pinky promise. Good. Lily's face broke into a grin. Now come see my room. I have so many things to show you. She grabbed his hand and pulled him inside. Marcus let himself be led, too overwhelmed to resist. The room was everything his life hadn't been for 18 months. Colorful, warm, full of toys and books and evidence that someone had loved this little girl every single day of her existence. This is Mr. Fluffington. Lily thrust a stuffed elephant at him. He's my favorite. He sleeps with me every night. Except last night because the bad men didn't let me bring him, but Daddy got him back for me. Marcus took the elephant carefully. It was soft and worn from years of hugging. He's nice. You can hold him whenever you want. He makes the scary feelings go away. Lily looked at him seriously. Do you have scary feelings, Marcus? The question hit him harder than he expected. His throat tightened. Sometimes. Me too. Daddy says it's okay to have scary feelings. He says even grown-ups have them. The important thing is to tell someone when you do so they can help. Marcus thought about all the nights he'd spent alone behind the sawmill, all the scary feelings he'd had with no one to tell, no one to help. I didn't have anyone to tell. You do now. Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, like it was the simplest thing in the world. You can tell me, or Daddy, or Aunt Sarah, or Big Mike, or anybody in the whole club. They're all your family now. How do you know that? Because Daddy said so, and Daddy doesn't lie. Lily took Mr. Fluffington back and set him carefully on her bed. Are you hungry? Aunt Sarah makes the best pancakes in the whole world. We could ask her to make some. I already ate. You could eat more. Daddy says you're too skinny. Lily studied him critically. You are pretty skinny, like a skeleton. But that's okay. We'll fix it. Marcus couldn't help it. He laughed. Actually laughed the sound rusty from disuse but real. Lily grinned like she'd won a prize. See? You can laugh, I knew you could. I haven't laughed in a long time. That's sad. Laughing is the best. We're going to have to practice. I'll tell you jokes and you can practice laughing at them. Are your jokes funny? Daddy says they're the funniest, but Daddy might be lying because he loves me. Lily considered this. No, he doesn't lie, so they must be really funny. Titan appeared in the doorway. He'd been watching them, Marcus realized. Watching his daughter help a homeless boy remember how to laugh. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got some visitors. Who? Lily asked. People who want to talk to Marcus. Marcus felt his body tense. The brief moment of peace shattered by the reminder of everything waiting outside this room. I told you I don't want to... Not reporters. Titan's voice was gentle. These are people you should meet. Trust me. They walked downstairs together. Marcus's hand found Lily's and she squeezed it without being asked. In the living room, 3 people were waiting. A woman in a suit who looked official and serious. A man with kind eyes and a folder full of papers. And standing slightly apart from them, Officer Chen from the police station. The same officer who'd told Marcus to move along a dozen times over the past year. Marcus stopped walking. It's okay. Titan's hand landed on his shoulder. They're here to help. The woman stepped forward. Marcus, my name is Patricia Hendricks. I'm with Child Protective Services. Marcus's whole body went rigid. CPS. The people who had put him in the group home in the first place. The people who had failed him so completely that living on the streets seemed like a better option. I'm not going back. Marcus, I'm not going back to a group home. I'm not going anywhere with you. His voice was rising, panic bleeding through. You can't make me. I'll run again. Marcus. Titan's voice cut through his panic. Calm. Steady. Nobody is taking you anywhere. I promise. Just listen to what they have to say. Marcus looked up at him. This man he'd known for less than 24 hours. This stranger who'd dropped to his knees and asked what he needed. You promise, on my daughter's life, you're not going anywhere you don't want to go. Marcus took a shaky breath, nodded. Patricia Hendricks sat down on the couch, making herself smaller, less threatening. Marcus, I understand why you're scared of CPS. I've read your file. I know what happened at the group home. And I want you to know that I'm deeply, deeply sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. No, it doesn't. But maybe this can. She nodded at the man with the folder. This is David Reynolds. He's a family law attorney. And we're here because Mr. Stone has expressed interest in becoming your legal guardian. Marcus blinked. My what? Your guardian. Someone who's responsible for taking care of you. Making sure you have food, shelter, education, medical care, everything you need. Patricia's voice was gentle. It would mean you could stay here. Permanently. Legally. Marcus looked at Titan. You want to be my guardian? I want to give you a home kid. A real one. If that means signing some papers and dealing with some lawyers, that's what we'll do. But why? I already told you why. You saved my daughter. You showed more courage than most grown men I know. And you've spent 18 months without anyone giving a damn about you. That ends now." David Reynolds opened his folder. "The process isn't usually this fast, but given the circumstances, we've been able to expedite things. The fact that you're a hero who just saved a child's life has made certain officials very motivated to help." Officer Chen stepped forward. He looked uncomfortable, ashamed. His eyes couldn't quite meet Marcus's. "I wanted to be here too, to tell you that I'm sorry." Marcus stared at him. "You told me to move along, every time you saw me." "I know. I was just doing my job, or that's what I told myself." Chen's voice was rough. "But I should have asked questions. Should have wondered why a kid your age was living on the streets. Should have done something instead of just making you somebody else's problem." "I wasn't a problem. I was just a kid." "I know, and I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life." Chen swallowed hard. "I just wanted you to hear it from me. I failed you. The whole department failed you, and we don't deserve your forgiveness." Marcus didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to scream at this man, wanted to rage about all the cold nights, the empty stomach, the fear of being arrested just for existing. But a larger part of him was just tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of carrying everything alone. "Okay," Chen blinked. "Okay. I heard you, and I don't know if I forgive you, but I heard you." Chen nodded slowly. "That's more than I deserve." The meeting continued. Papers were explained. Signatures were discussed. A timeline was laid out that would make Marcus a legal member of the Stone household within 30 days. 30 days. 1 month from now, he would have a family again. Marcus signed where they told him to sign. His handwriting was shaky, rusty from disuse, but it was his name. Marcus Cole. On papers that mattered. Papers that said someone wanted him. When the officials finally left, Titan walked them to the door. Marcus stayed on the couch, staring at the copies of the papers he'd been given. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "I think so. It doesn't feel real yet." "It will. Give it time." She sat down next to him. "You know, I was the one who wanted to adopt Lily after her mother died. My sister. She died giving birth, and I was going to take Lily, raise her as my own. But Titan fought for her. Proved he could be the father she needed. He seems like a good dad. The best. Rough around the edges, sure. But everything he does for love." Sarah looked at him. "He's going to be good for you too, Marcus. If you let him." "I don't know how to have a family anymore." "You'll learn. We all will. Together." Lily came bouncing down the stairs, Mr. Fluffington clutched in her arms. "Did the paper people leave? Can we play now?" "They left." Marcus managed a small smile. "What do you want to play?" "Hide and seek. I'm really good at hiding. But you have to find me, okay? You have to always find me." Marcus thought about the night before. The terror in Lily's eyes. The way she'd held his hand and trusted him completely. "I'll always find you." The day passed in a blur of small, ordinary moments that felt extraordinary to Marcus. Lunch around the kitchen table. Lily teaching him the rules of some complicated card game that she kept changing whenever she was losing. Big Mike stopping by to check on them and staying to tell stories that made everyone laugh. Normal. This was what normal felt like. But the world outside the Stone house wasn't done with them yet. At 3:00 p.m., Titan's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened. How many? A pause. "Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Sarah. Something passed between them. Understanding. Concern. "What's happening?" Marcus asked. "Town meeting. The mayor called an emergency session to discuss everything." Titan's jaw tightened. "A lot of people are upset. They want answers about how a 7-year-old was living on their streets for 18 months without anyone doing anything." "What are you going to do?" "Go listen. See what they have to say." Titan looked at Marcus. "You want to come Me. It's about you. Seems like you should have a chance to face them if you want to." Marcus thought about it. All those people who'd walked past him, who'd ignored him, who'd treated him like garbage. The idea of standing in front of them was terrifying, but so was the idea of hiding forever. Yeah, I want to come. The community center was packed. Marcus had never seen so many people in one place. Rows and rows of chairs, almost all of them filled. Faces he recognized from 18 months of wandering these streets. Faces that had looked through him, that had pretended he didn't exist. Now every single one of them was staring. Titan walked in first, flanked by Big Mike and 2 other club members. Marcus followed, his newly bandaged feet aching with each step. Lily had wanted to come too, but Sarah had convinced her to stay home. This wasn't going to be a fun outing. The murmuring started immediately, whispers rippling through the crowd like wind through grass. That's him. That's the boy. Oh my God, he's so small. How did we not see him? How did we not know? Mayor Williams stood at the front of the room looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His face was haggard. His suit rumpled, his usual political smile nowhere to be seen. Mr. Stone, thank you for coming. His eyes moved to Marcus. And you must be Marcus. I'm very glad to meet you. Marcus didn't respond. Didn't know how to respond to a man who'd been mayor of this town the entire time Marcus had been starving on its streets. Titan guided him to a seat in the front row. The club members positioned themselves around them, a wall of leather and muscle that made their protection very clear. We're here to listen, Titan said. That's all. Mayor Williams nodded and turned to face the crowd. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. As you all know by now, we have a situation that requires our immediate attention. Last night, a 5-year-old girl was kidnapped from her home by men hired by Gerald Morrison. She was rescued by a 7-year-old boy named Marcus Cole, a homeless boy who had been living on our streets for the past 18 months. The room was silent, heavy with guilt and shame. I've spent the last 12 hours asking myself how this happened. How a child could live among us invisible for a year and a half. How we could walk past him every day and do nothing. William's voice cracked. And I don't have a good answer. There is no good answer. We failed this child. All of us. Mr. Patterson stood up in the back of the room, the coffee shop owner, the man who'd screamed at Marcus to get away from his shop. I need to say something. Mr. Patterson, I saw him almost every day. That boy. He'd walk past my shop and I'd chase him off like he was a stray dog. Patterson's voice was shaking. I told myself I was protecting my customers, protecting my business. But I was just making myself feel better about ignoring him. He sat down heavily, his face buried in his hands. Wilson from the grocery store stood up next. His voice was barely audible. I threatened him with a baseball bat. He was just waiting near the dumpster. He was hungry and I threatened a child with a bat. More people stood. More confessions. The woman who'd pulled her daughter away. The officer who'd written citations for loitering. The social worker who'd closed his case without ever actually finding him. Each one speaking their shame into the silence. Each one admitting what they'd done. What they'd failed to do. Marcus sat there and listened to all of it. Watched these adults crumble under the weight of their own failures. And he felt nothing. Or not nothing. Something. But not what he expected. Not anger, not vindication. Just a sort of empty understanding. They were human. They'd been selfish and scared and lazy and all the things humans were. They'd failed him because it was easier than helping. Because helping would have required effort and sacrifice and caring about someone who couldn't give them anything in return. They were human, and so was he. Can I say something? His voice was small, but in the silence of that room it carried. Every head turned, every eye locked on the thin boy in the front row. Marcus, Mayor Williams looked uncertain. Of course, please. Marcus stood up. His legs were shaking, but he forced them to hold him. Titan started to rise to support him, but Marcus shook his head slightly. He needed to do this alone. My mom died 18 months ago, my sister too. in a fire. After that, I got put in a group home where bad things happened. So I ran away. I was 6 years old and I ran away because being on the streets felt safer than being in that house. The room was absolutely silent. For 18 months, I walked through this town every day. I looked at all of you. I saw you with your families and your jobs and your lives, and I wondered what I did wrong. What was so bad about me that nobody wanted to help? A woman in the middle of the room started crying. I learned how to be invisible, how to move through a crowd without anyone noticing me, how to find food in dumpsters and sleep behind buildings and stay warm enough to not die when the temperature dropped. I got really good at surviving, but I forgot how to do anything else. He paused, swallowed, forced himself to keep going. Last night, I heard a little girl crying, and I had a choice. I could stay hidden the way I'd learned to stay hidden, or I could help her. And I thought about my sister, about how I couldn't save her from the fire, about how I'd spent 18 months wishing I'd been able to do something, and I decided that this time I was going to try. I didn't know she was Lily Stone. Didn't know her dad was the president of the Hells Angels. I just knew she was scared and alone and nobody was coming for her, just like me. Except I could do something about it. So I did. He looked around the room, at all the faces staring at him, at all the people who'd made him feel like he was worthless. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel bad. I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to do better. I want you to see the next kid like me. The next person who's hungry or scared or alone. I want you to ask what you can do to help instead of looking the other way. Because there are more kids like me, right now, in this town, in every town. And most of them aren't going to rescue anyone famous. Most of them are just going to be invisible until they're not around anymore. And that's not okay. That's never been okay. Marcus stopped talking. He'd said everything he needed to say. His whole body was trembling, but he stayed standing. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Then Mayor Williams spoke, his voice rough with emotion. You're absolutely right, Marcus. And I want you to know that starting today, this town is going to change. We're going to create programs for homeless youth. We're going to train our police officers to recognize and help vulnerable children. We're going to make sure that no child ever falls through the cracks the way you did. Those are just words. Marcus's voice was quiet but steady. Words are easy. I want to see what you actually do. The room went silent again. A 7-year-old had just called out the mayor, and nobody knew how to respond. Then Titan stood up. His presence seemed to fill the room. The boy's right. Words don't mean anything without action. So here's what's going to happen. My club is going to be watching, not with threats, not with violence, just watching to make sure you follow through. And if we see any kid in this town being treated the way Marcus was treated, we're going to make sure everyone knows about it. You can't just, someone started to say. I'm not finished. Titan's voice was ice. This boy saved my daughter. He did what none of you would have done. And he's asking you, begging you to be better. The least you can do is try. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. Promises had been made. Committees formed. A fund established in Marcus's name to help homeless youth in Copper Ridge. Marcus didn't know if any of it would matter. Didn't know if words spoken in the heat of shame would translate into real change. But for the first time in 18 months, he felt something he'd forgotten existed. Hope. They drove home as the sun was setting. Marcus sat in the back seat watching Copper Ridge pass by through the window. The same streets he'd walked for 18 months. The same buildings he'd hidden behind. But everything looked different now. You did good today, kid. Titan's voice was quiet, proud. What you said in there. That took guts. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. They pulled into the driveway. Lily was waiting on the porch, jumping up and down with excitement. The moment Marcus stepped out of the truck, she ran to him and grabbed his hand. Come on, Aunt Sarah made a cake. A whole cake just for us. A cake, why? Because you're part of our family now, it's a celebration. Marcus let himself be pulled inside. The smell of chocolate hit him as he walked through the door. A cake sat on the kitchen table, slightly lopsided, covered in frosting, with "Welcome Home, Marcus" written in shaky letters. "Lily helped me decorate it," Sarah said, her eyes suspiciously bright. "Can you tell? It's the best cake I've ever seen." "You haven't even tasted it yet." "Doesn't matter, it's still the best." They ate cake until their stomachs hurt. Lily told terrible jokes that Marcus laughed at anyway. Big Mike stopped by again and demolished 3 pieces in record time. Titan watched it all with an expression that Marcus was learning to recognize: contentment. This was what a happy family looked like. After dinner, after Lily had been put to bed, Marcus found himself standing on the back porch looking at the stars. More stars than he'd ever seen from behind the sawmill. Brighter, clearer, like the sky was showing off. Titan appeared beside him, 2 mugs of hot chocolate in his hands. He handed one to Marcus and stood there in silence for a moment. "How you feeling?" "I don't know." Marcus wrapped his hands around the warm mug. "Different. Good different or bad different. Good, I think. It's hard to tell. I've been feeling bad for so long that feeling good is kind of scary." "That's normal. When you've been surviving, it takes a while to learn how to live again." Titan took a sip of his hot chocolate. "But you'll get there. You've got time now." "What if I can't? What if I'm too broken?" "You're not broken, kid. You're just scratched up. Scars heal, and the ones that don't, they just become part of who you are. They don't make you broken. They make you strong." Marcus thought about his scars, the ones on his feet from running through the woods, the ones on his heart from losing his family, the ones on his soul from 18 months of being invisible. Maybe Titan was right. Maybe they weren't marks of damage. Maybe they were marks of survival. "Thank you." The words came out small. "For everything. You don't have to thank me. I'm the one who should be thanking you. You gave me my daughter back. And you gave me a family." Titan didn't say anything, just put his hand on Marcus's shoulder and squeezed. They stood there together, father and son, looking at the stars over Copper Ridge. The same stars that had watched Marcus shiver behind the sawmill. The same stars that had witnessed his loneliness and his pain. But now they were witnessing something else. A boy who had been invisible becoming visible. A ghost becoming real. A survivor learning how to live. 6 months later, the adoption was final. Marcus stood in a courtroom wearing a suit that actually fit him, watching Judge Patterson, no relation to the coffee shop owner, sign the papers that would make him Marcus Stone. Titan was beside him. Sarah was crying happy tears in the gallery. Lily was bouncing in her seat, unable to contain her excitement. "Marcus Cole," the judge said, smiling, "it is my great pleasure to officially welcome you to the Stone family." The gavel came down. The courtroom erupted in cheers. Lily launched herself at Marcus, almost knocking him over. "You're my brother now. You're really, really my brother." "I guess I am." "You have to call me little sister now. That's the rule." "Pretty sure that's not a rule." "It is now. I just made it up." Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from deep in his chest and felt like sunlight. Outside the courthouse, a crowd was waiting. Hell's Angels members there to congratulate their newest family member. Neighbors from Copper Ridge who'd come to witness the happy ending. Reporters who'd followed Marcus's story from that first breaking news report to this triumphant conclusion. But Marcus's eyes found someone else in the crowd. A boy, maybe 10 years old, standing apart from everyone else. Thin, dirty, watching the celebration with hungry eyes, homeless. Marcus recognized the look instantly. The invisible look, the ghost look. He broke away from the crowd and walked toward the boy. The boy tensed, ready to run, but Marcus held up his hands. "Hey, it's okay, I'm not going to hurt you." "What do you want?" "Just to talk." Marcus crouched down, putting himself at eye level. "What's your name? Why do you care?" "Because someone cared about me once, when I was just like you." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. It had the Hells Angels logo on it and a phone number underneath. "If you ever need help, food, shelter, anything, call this number. Ask for Titan. Tell him Marcus sent you." The boy stared at the card, then at Marcus, then back at the card. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Marcus smiled. Because that's what we do now. We see people, and we don't look away. The boy took the card, clutched it like it was precious, and for just a second something flickered in his eyes. Hope. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just pass it on someday, when you can. The boy nodded, then disappeared into the crowd, invisible to everyone except Marcus. Titan appeared at his side. Who was that? The next one. Marcus looked up at his father. There's always a next one. Titan nodded slowly. Then we'll find them, one at a time, for as long as it takes. They walked back to the celebration together. Lily grabbed Marcus's hand. Sarah wrapped an arm around his shoulders. Big Mike lifted him up and put him on his shoulders so everyone could see him. The cheers washed over him like warm water. The love surrounded him like armor. And Marcus Cole, the boy who had been invisible for 18 months, the boy who had saved a princess and won a kingdom, looked out at the crowd and finally understood. He was home. He had always been worth saving. And now, for the rest of his life, he would make sure no child ever had to wonder if they were invisible again. Because that's what heroes do. They don't just save one person. They create a world where everyone gets saved. And that world starts with a single choice, a single moment of courage, a single decision to see someone who everyone else has decided doesn't exist. It starts with one kid looking at another kid and saying, "I see you," and meaning it. If this story touched your heart, if you believe every child deserves to be seen, leave a comment right now. Tell us where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story has traveled. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because there are more stories to tell, more invisible kids to find, and more heroes waiting to be discovered. This is not the end. This is just the beginning.